Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Nina and today I'll show you this entire sketchbook that I just finished last week. I'm so happy to have finished it because usually I mostly grab my really affordable Royal Talent sketchbook and I shy away from my fancy ones. And I have a couple of those ongoing. But somehow, with this Strathmore Mixed Media sketchbook, I've been able to avoid this. I've absolutely loved using it. The paper is incredible. I guess it's the perfect mix of good quality paper and still not being super expensive. I think I paid around 25 or 28 euros, and as you can see, it has a lot of pages, 64. It is a full cotton paper, but with a weight of only 190 grams per square meter. But I never had any issues with bleed through, as you will see. So let's get into it. So here on the first page, it's a color mixing party. This is an idea I picked up from Sophie McPike. Basically, it's a way of testing the mixes you can get with a certain color. So you have your basic selection, which is up there. These are all the hues we'll mix with one other color. And then you use this basic selection as an orientation to make one or more mixing wheels, where you will put the hero color you want to mix with everything into the center. And then you mix each of the colors of the basic palette with your hero color. So here, for instance, I mixed all the colors on the wheel with this ochre that I put in the middle. So every one of those colors there was mixed with this color in the middle. In this wheel here, I mixed everything with pink. And in this wheel at the bottom, I mixed everything with white gouache to make pastel colors, basically. Basically, this whole page was just a really low pressure way to start this sketchbook, which I know is a struggle for many of you out there as well. It was also a way for me to test the paper with wet media right from the outset and to just have some fun. I actually started the sketchbook when we went on a little weekend trip to Namur, a city in the south of Belgium. And so here on the next page, I swatched a few art materials that we bought while we were there. It says Namur souvenirs. I think those are a few Neocolor IIs that I didn't have yet. And yeah, actually looking at it, I can see this saffron is this one, and this crimson alizarin is that one. So I guess I made a good selection because these ended up with my favorites. I also got some neon yellow acrylic ink, which I tried to mix with the Neocolors, but that didn't work too well. And down here are some more swatches of acrylic paints that my boyfriend bought that I still wanted to swatch out. It's always the first thing I do when I return with new art supplies. It's just so exciting to really see them on the paper. And then on the right, I tried using them all doing this little urban sketch in Namur. I had prepared this neon yellow background, and then I mostly used the new Neocolors on top. Here on the next page, on the left, I copied these cute piggies from a beer label. Belgium is known for its beer, and while we were in Namur, we tried a couple of local ones. So this is the Ardennes Saison Bière Sauvage, and it had some wild boar on the label that I really enjoyed. I always wanted to fill this part up there, but I never got around to it. And here on the right, I made a study of a James Dean portrait that was hanging in our hotel. You know how all hotel and Airbnb rooms always have the same paintings now? Why is that? It's so lame. Like, it's either New York for whatever reason, or Audrey Hepburn, or James Dean. I have nothing against those, but there's so much art out there, I wish people would get some of it. Anyway, I love a good black and white portrait with really deep shadows, so one morning I decided to try and copy it. And I really like how this turned out. Also the sweatshirt with those wrinkles and shadows, you know, now it just looks obvious and easy. But while doing it, it doesn't seem obvious or easy at all, and I was worried it would look all wrong. So I'm glad that I managed to capture all these shadow shapes correctly enough so that the portrait really ends up looking like James Dean. On the next page we have this portrait of my boyfriend reading. As you can see, I taped that over another sketch, which I'll show you, but only really quickly, and don't tell anybody, because I really hated this at the time. Now, I still don't like it now, but I don't find it that awful anymore. Anyway, this one at the top, I think it's not bad technically, and the likeness is decent. But it feels almost a bit too accurate or labored or something. And so I think it's lacking some kind of charm or uniqueness or something. You know what I mean? Then on the right, we were out walking and we sat down in a little park in Namur and sketched the scene in front of us. They were these cool caves that were kind of hard to draw, but I think it's not too bad. And it's a great memory of drawing together on this little trip. Here I made another plein-air urban sketch, this time from the roof terrace of our hotel. We were able to access it, and even though it was pretty cold, I thought it was a really great opportunity for urban sketching without an audience. I am definitely pretty shy about sketching in public. I don't like that people seem to think it's okay to look over your shoulder and comment on your painting. It just creates too much pressure, and it makes me think that whatever I draw or paint has to be wonderful, or else everyone will judge me. Anyway, I think this is not bad. It was quite a challenging view. I'm not really great at painting these big panoramas of cities. Here in the back we can see the big fortress, the citadel on the mountain, which Namur is famous for. And there's the cable car you can take to go up or down if you're not in the mood to hike up the mountain. It's possible, but it's pretty high and far to go all the way up to the top. So I think what most people do, and what we did, is to take the cable car up and then walk down. Here we have a little bit of a mismatched spread. There's Nala on the left, sleeping in one of her baskets. I think Nala looks a little bit weird, but the basket is not too bad. I remember that it was quite tough to paint because it's black. But look at Nala, she's so cute, look at that little paw. And this here is something I made for the sunflower video, where I painted sunflowers with a ton of different media. So this one is all ink, but different types of ink. So I started again with the neon ink blob. That's the acrylic ink we saw earlier. And then I used black Indian ink to sketch the flowers. And at the end I added regular ink by Herbin to add the other colors. I really love that brand. I only have a few tiny ink bottles by them, but every single one of them is gorgeous. I kinda like too how the acrylic ink drops here rejected the other ink I put on top, so these drops really pop. So yeah, overall it's a bit of a crazy sketch with all that black ink, but I still kinda like it. It feels sort of unique for a sunflower painting, you know what I mean? Then here on the next page, on the left, I glued in some dried and pressed flowers. They have turned a bit more brown over time, but they're still beautiful, I think. And then I used watercolor to repeat and exaggerate their shapes, you see? So this part is this, and those leaves are here. And down here it's the same. This part is here, and this whole area with all the leaves is there. I did take some artistic liberties, as you can see. This here on the right was actually when we did another little weekend trip to the Belgian coast. On one of our walks there, we found a nice bench with a picnic table, so we decided to sit down and sketch a bit. But I couldn't really decide on any view in any of the directions. And finally, the table itself caught my eye. It had all these lichen growing on the wood, and they looked so cool. So I just went ahead and drew those. It took kinda long, but it was a great observation exercise, because, well, they weren't easy to draw, and I really had to stare at them and observe them closely. I still don't really think that my drawing is realistic, but I think it looks cool nonetheless. Now this page was a preparation page for the octopus painting that I made a video about. It's a full-length, real-time paint with me video, in case you want to watch it. So on the left, I tested out some colors and compositions. First, I had a look at all my acrylic gouache blues and some ink, and I tried out how other materials layer on top of them. And down here, we have a couple of thumbnails to test the composition. You know, to see should the octopus be at the center, more to the side, or over here it's a bit more zoomed in. And here on the right is the one I kind of went with. Except that I cut off part of the right side to make it look a bit more dynamic. And on the right side, I basically did a quick test version. And I like how loose this is, especially those dry brush textures on the tentacles. And sometimes during the real painting, I would take a break and go back into the sketchbook to try something here before committing to it on the real painting. Like this lighter orange all over the octopus, I tried that here first. Or the darker blue at the bottom of the page to make it look like the ocean with sunlight coming from the top. I actually think this was really useful, and when I do my next bigger painting that I want to look really finished and good, I think I will do this again. To have a little test version of the painting on the side where I can test out ideas first before actually committing. Now this one you haven't seen yet. I haven't shared it anywhere, I think, but I did record it. It's just a painting of a bouquet, but I wanted to try something a bit different. So instead of painting the flowers, I just painted their silhouette with this set of dark watercolors that I have. And then I just filled in the background, trying to get some nice variation with the water and the pigments. And I just love how it turned out. All these textures. I mean, I have to show you some close-ups. So I made it with this set of dark Japanese watercolors. It's that purplish black here. Amazing color. And then next, well, if you're a subscriber of my channel, you may have seen the next couple of pages. This is when we went to the countryside for a week. On the first day, we had to go to a close-by city to get all of our groceries. So we made a little day out of it in Bastogne. And we went to a pub and had some local food and Belgian beer. Then this is the dome house we stayed in. It was such a cool place. And I really love all these colors and those plants here in the front too, this color combination. Here I was playing around with some ferns I collected, printing them and leaving them to dry on this colored background. These next two paintings I did plein air on the grounds of the property we were staying at. If you want to see this in more detail, then go check out this video. And here I painted some of the plants of the region. On the left I used photos that I took on our walks, and on the right I painted the bouquet of wildflowers that I picked. It's a little tradition that I try to do when on vacation. Here I just glued in some of those ferns from before. And on the right I made a little painting of this tiny fragile flower I saw somewhere. At this point we were back home, and I painted this page during a painting session with April from Monkey Mintaka. Either one of her YouTube lives or her Patreon, I'm not sure anymore. I really like how this turned out. It reminds me that I should really do this more often. To paint a first colorful layer really quickly and loosely. Let it dry and then loosely sketch on top. I love how much fun it was, and I think we can see that in the result. These birds are a little derpy and they have so much character. Now this is from my charcoal video that I did. Every time I see these pages, it makes me want to pick up charcoal. I really love these textures, and I really enjoyed using charcoal. You might know that I like to use my fingers and get them all messy and dirty and smoosh paint around on the page. So charcoal is really something I should use more. Anyway, so I tested and compared different types of charcoals here. You know, pencils, willow, sticks, and liquid charcoal. And I tested making lines, erasing it, mixing with water, and so on. And then I made this first portrait of a woman. Look at those textures. And here I created this double study of a still life of pears. On the left I mostly used traditional charcoal willow, and on the right I mostly used the liquid charcoal. That's why you have sharper edges on the right. You can see the brush strokes here in the shadows. It's kind of funny that at first I really preferred the one on the right. It has more contrast and it felt more striking. But now I prefer the one on the left, I think. I just love the graininess and softness of this texture. It's so dreamy, you know? Kind of magical. Here on this next spread, I just did some very quick figure drawing. It's maybe a bit of a waste of this paper to do that, but I was in the zone and so I just went for it. Here on this next page, I used a tinted charcoal stick to create these portraits. I didn't really enjoy using that charcoal stick. It didn't want to behave how I wanted it to. But I still enjoy those two portraits, so I guess I should still use it some more and try to just embrace it for what it is and see where it takes me. Here I actually went out on a little artist date with myself. There's this big famous artwork in a pavilion in Brussels that it's rarely open to the public. So when it finally was open for a week or so this summer, I went there and I grabbed a seat in the corner and I did these graphite sketches. I have some footage of it. I think statues are a great way to practice sketching and practice anatomy in portraits, because all you have are the shadows. It's challenging to only draw the shadows you see, rather than lines or facial elements. But that's exactly why it's good practice. It forces you to draw only what you really see. You know, to not look at the thing as an eye, for instance, or a mouth or a nose, but to just see it as abstract shapes. Now this is a sketch I made during the 30 Days of Watercolor and Beyond challenge. It's based on a photo I took of the neglected backyard of a local museum. I just really loved the shadows on the floor and how it was framed by the plants. I remember that when I made that, I wasn't happy with those trees at first, so I kept desperately adding Neocolors on top and I ended up with this texture that I actually really like. And on the right, I just made a couple of drawings outdoors, just watching some people and practicing drawing them from life. I find it so hard to do when people are moving. That one at the bottom is probably from a photo or from TV that I paused, because I don't think I could get this kind of detail from a person that was moving. Then there's this, which is one of my favorite pages. These are both still lifes from our apartment. I also did those during the 30 Days Beyond Watercolor challenge. I just love painting things from your life, things that will turn into great memories one day and fill you with nostalgia. You know, all these objects have been carefully selected and collected over the years. The flowers we dried ourselves and so on. This wire sculpture, I also made it myself. So it just all means a lot. And all this meaning is somehow captured in this sketch. Here on this next page, as you can see, I covered something up. So I glued this painting in here. I almost never do that to cover pages in my sketchbooks. I try not to, because I don't want to feel the pressure that my sketchbooks should be perfect. I try to consider them as safe zones for play, creativity, and exploration. And that includes mistakes. I'm a firm believer that you don't learn without making mistakes. But every now and again, I make something that I find so horrific and embarrassing that I just want to get rid of it. And this page felt almost cursed because I actually painted it twice, and both times it was horrible. So I decided to just glue in a painting I had made on loose paper and move on. On the right side, we have this adorable hippo, which I painted during another painting session with Monkey Mintaka. I really love this guy, or girl. I think it's a girl. I don't think I ever shared it, but I should. She looks so cheeky. And then this dog, Charlie, was from the same live stream. And for this autumn painting on the right, I started with the oil pastels and then added the watercolor on top. And I remember at some point thinking, there wasn't really any reason for doing that. I could have just done it the other way around. But now in the end, looking at these textures here, I don't know if it's true. And I really like this tree, some of these textures here. So beautiful. Now here I was just painting some flowers again that we had. My boyfriend brings home flowers regularly and I love painting them. And even though this painting is pretty simple, I really love it. I think it's such a cool color combination. A bit unusual for a flower painting, quite dark, except for these greens. And this background, it's again one of those dark watercolors. I can never get over these textures. Look at them. Look at them. I'm obsessed with these kind of watercolor textures. It's one of the most magical things in painting for me. And here I created a limited palette for autumn. This is one of my recent videos where I explain exactly how and why I selected these hues. And on the right I made this painting of a photo of an autumn Flatlay. That photo was actually what inspired this palette. And in the next spread I used the same autumn palette to paint these nature landscapes. This is another video I'll link for you. I guess there's so many paintings here that I did for YouTube because I'm more likely to pick up this nicer sketchbook when I paint for you, because I plan it out a little bit more and I guess I invest more time and effort into my paintings when I film. I mean, sometimes when I just want to do some super quick sketches here and there, I'll often choose another cheaper sketchbook. This next spread is from my recent day excursion to Ghent, where I had a lovely day walking around, going to art stores and boutiques, and painting in cafes. On the left, I drew from life, this young woman and my coffee and cinnamon croissant in the foreground. But on the right, this is of course a study of a really famous painting, Girl With Peonies, which I saw in an art book that they had in the coffee shop I was at. This is all done with Neocolor IIs, and I really like this color combination and the textures. It made me think that I should try sketching like this more often. And I also love how some of the white page peeks through just a tiny bit here and there. This I haven't shared yet. The painting on the left is something I painted based on a photo I took while I was in Ghent. It might seem a bit overworked, but that's because it basically is. I didn't really like the first layer I did of this, but I was determined to save this painting, so I kept working at it with new colors and a bit of acrylic marker too, and I actually really like it now. I love some of those textures we see in the sky and down in the grass, and I love that color combination too. And on the right, I used similar colors to paint this beautiful dried autumn leaf that was casting a long shadow on our table. I will show you some footage. I'm sorry it's vertical. Sometimes I just film something quickly when I want to share it on Instagram. And then we arrive at my last pages, where I painted using only acrylic gouache. I tried to do it all with the dry brush technique. I was just really craving it, as I told you in my last video. So these paintings are all from a morning walk I did with Nala in our local park, which is especially beautiful these days with all the autumn leaves. There's just nothing better than painting from life or from your own pictures. Don't get me wrong, I also paint a lot from online reference photos, but it just can't match the connection you can build with paintings that are inspired from your own life, I think. This last page I haven't shown you yet. Last week I said I wanted to add some pencil because I wasn't quite satisfied with it, and I didn't share it with you. But I kind of changed my mind about it. This is the view when you exit the park, and sometimes the light is just kind of magical there. The sun was still really low on the horizon, so the street and the scene was mostly in the shadow, except for some small strips of light here and there, and some light in the leaves up on the tree. So I exaggerated that light and shadow contrast with the warm and cool colors. And I quite like that page now. And so this is it. These were all the 64 pages of this amazing Strathmore sketchbook. What's your favorite painting? I really can't decide for this one because there's quite many that I love. I definitely want to buy the sketchbook again, but before I do, I will try to finish my other fancy sketchbooks first. I still have an odd orange one that I started years ago, an etcher one, and a few others that I haven't even started yet. Because if I don't use those first, I don't think I ever will. I also want to try to do a bit of a no-buy period for at least a couple of months, if not the whole next year. I have so many amazing art supplies, and I want to force myself to use them more. Thanks so much for watching this video all the way until the end, and for spending this time with me. Any like, comment and share really helps me grow this little channel, and it motivates me to keep going. So let me know what you think, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet. Next week I want to paint the cover of this sketchbook, and maybe of some others too. Initially I wanted to do this today, but I think this video is already gonna be long enough on its own. So I hope to see you next week. So long, stay creative, and take care.